Tirou? Bate. Testa aqui. Eu sei. Testa aqui.
Tá meio alto. Mas e esse negócio aqui? Alô, alô. Tá ouvindo? Só que você fala assim, ó. Então, mas esse é mesmo. Então, mas esse é mesmo. É.
Eu acho que ele conecta lá, só se ele passar por aqui.
Não passa não, ele vai passar nele.
Então esse aqui vai ficar lá, então, lá embaixo.
Não sei, mas a gente não tá.
Ó, tá vendo? Tá todo mundo.
shelter, or I'm gonna fade away. Poor children, it's just a shadow away. It's just a shadow away. Poor children, it's just a shadow away. It's just a shadow away.
Dessa aqui.
Passa, passa.
E essa?
Próxima.
Sai aqui. Pronto, vou começar. É da Ana Paula. Você não deu ponto, vai entender.
Ah, eu tava com o meu, se quiser pode usar. Só para fechar a porta, assim a gente já vai. Good morning, everyone. Dear researchers, good morning. Welcome back to the second day of the event. We are going to begin the presentations right now, and I hope everybody enjoyed the last night. And I think by the pictures that you did, I saw the pictures of last night, and it seems like you did have a very good time. So, the first presentation, I'm going to ask everybody to come inside, please. The first presentation is of the Brazilian coordinator, Dr. Marcelo Giannini, and this presentation is called Brazil-Japan Partnership on Adhesive Dentistry. This lecture will be shared with Drs. Patricia Makishi and Dr. Ana Paula Aires, both postdoctoral, former and actual student of Piracicaba Dental School at the University of Campinas. And Professor Marcelo Giannini is the coordinator, the Brazilian coordinator of the event, and he's the associate professor of Piracicaba Dental School at Unicamp. After the lecture, we're going to open for questions, and if you feel more comfortable, you can write down your questions, and we can collect them and make the questions to the presenters. Also, I have a message from the Japanese professors. They asked you to fill out a form, a questionnaire that some of you already have, and to give it back by noon. This questionnaire is from JSPS, the research funding agency from Japan, and they ask us a feedback of the meeting. So if you please fill it out, it's very, very important for them, especially the young researchers, okay? So I invite Dr. Marcelo to come forward to begin this lecture. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you, Japanese members, for coming to Brazil. Thank you. And for Dr. Nikaido and Professor Tagami for entrusting me to organize this workshop. Thank you. We submitted this proposal last year, but the proposal was rejected. And in the beginning of this year, Dr. Nikaido wrote me again and said to resubmit the proposal, which was accepted by both agencies, FAPESP and GSPS. As Dr. Braga said, I had less than 3 months to prepare this meeting. And this meeting happened because the efforts of my students. Carolina, I think is not here, Carolina, Bruna, Mayara, Maicon, Jorge, Eduardo, Weber, Gabriel, and Beatriz. Thank you all. Also, I would like to share my presentation with my best students, one of my best students that I have had, Dr. Patricia Makish. Thank you, Patricia. And Dr. Ana Paula Aires. Thank you for both. Okay. This is the topics of my presentation are my Japanese roots. I'd like to show my roots. The partnership, scientific articles, OCT, methodology, and the plasma application in adhesive dentistry. Okay. This is my great-great-grandfather. I don't know his name, nor his age in this picture. According to my family, he was a samurai. It's correct? Samurai, yeah. I believe this picture is from 1855, approximately. I got this document at the Japanese Immigration Museum in Brazil. Look the information about the name, profession, origin, destination. His age, and his religion. Okay. In this another document, you can check the date of the trip and the name of the ship. This is La Plata Maru. He traveled. He got, I think, he got 40. Oh, sorry. Yep. My grandfather traveled for 45 days. It's almost 3 months traveling. Okay. Okay. This is the scientific articles that I published in collaboration with the TMD University. I think it's more than 14. It's 14 articles, scientific articles. Thank you for the collaboration, Dr. Nikaido, Dr. Tagami. Okay. My first trip to Japan was in 2001 when I attended the IADR meeting in Chiba. Remember that? My second trip to Japan was the following year, 2002, when Dr. Tagami invited Dr. Mario De Góes, who invited me to go with him to Japan. Thank you, Mario, for the invitation. Thank you for opening this door for me. I appreciate it. I did 2 research, both were published. The first in the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry, and the second in Journal of Adhesive Dentistry. In this study, I learned to work with micro-shear methodology developed by Shimada, Dr. Shimada. But the important thing was to understand the adverse effects, diverse interactions between all-in-one or 2-step etching rings adhesives and light activate composites and dual-cure resin cements. In other words, the chemical reaction, acid-base reaction, occurs between acidity of simplified adhesives and tertiary amine of the restorative composites or dual-cure resin cements. The bubbles observed in these figures represent the residues of this adverse interaction. In 2011, I traveled to Japan a month after the big earthquake. Many people in Brazil didn't want me to travel to Japan, but I did. I performed this study, which was published in Dental Materials Journal. Okay. The results of this study suggest that the bond strength of both Relax Unicam and Panavia F2.0 increase with the use of resin coating, and no effect was observed for Clearfield SCS cement and GSEM. In 2013, I performed a study using OCT methodology, and I test the internal and marginal adaptation of 2 self-adhesive resins, fused liquid dentin from generic Pentron and Vertiz flow from Care. And I compare to a traditional restorative system, a 3-step etching rings adhesive, OptiBond FL, and Herculite resin cement using Class 1 cavities. Here's an image using fused liquid dentin. This image is a confocal laser scanning microscopy. And then the big areas, the bright areas here, at the resident interface represent the presence of an interfacial gap or defects which were confirmed by confocal laser scanning microscopy. You can see here the bright areas correspond these areas. This is for fused liquid dentin. This is for vertice flow from cur. You can see the gaps or defects here represented by the bright spots. And this the control, this OptiBond FL plus Herculite composite. You observe less gas formation, gap formation for the traditional and conventional restorative system. Okay, Patricia, come here.
Okay. Hello, good morning, everyone. I have a small problem because I'm very small, so I hope everyone can see me. And by the way, thank you very much for the nice, very kind introduction about me, Dr. Marcelo. I think I don't deserve so much, but thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank Professor Tagami, Dr. Giannini, and all the presenters that come from so far, and all the staff members that really put a lot of effort to make this memorable joint meeting happen. My name is Patricia Makishi, and I think I can feel very privileged to have Professor Tagami as my my PhD professor as for 5 years, my advisor, and Dr. Giannini for 2 years, I believe, as a postdoctoral advisor. And I feel very honorable to meet you both, and I learned so much from you. And to represent you both today, it's a very big challenge for me. On this picture was a very happy day, actually, not only because of the prize that we could get the first prize in Thailand in 2015, but it also represents a true, how can I say that, collaborative work, research work between Tokyo Medical and Dental University and Piracicaba Dental School. And besides that, this work was supported by FOP and JSPS. So that's why I believe it fits very well for this kind of meeting. It's exactly what they propose. Actually, Dr. Giannini surprised me because I didn't know I was going to present today. So I'm sorry if I missed some points. And I will try to speak briefly about our work that resulted from that project. It was published in Dental Materials in 2015, and the title is Assessment of Current Adhesives in Class 1 Cavity, Non-Destructive Imaging Using Optical Coherence Tomography and Microtensile Bond Strength. It counts with many international co-authors. For example, let me see, Titawaridat from Mahidol University in Bangkok, Dr. Alireza Sadri from University of Washington, Dr. Shimada from Okayama University right now, I believe, Adriano Martins, that he's from Piracicaba Dental School, and of course, Professor Tagami and Dr. Giannini. it was a great team to work with. Okay, so for the ones who are not used with OCT image, this is a typical 2D cross-sectional image that can be obtained with optical coherence tomography. The process is quite simple because if a light passes through two different mediums, it will result in a portion of light that is reflected and refracted if we have two different refractive indices. So for example, here we have the composite resin, and it's a class 1 cavity on dentin. And whenever we see differences in refractive index, for example, on the top, it's air and composite, we can see a bright white pixel. And whenever we have a gap formation, we can also see this line on the margins of the restoration. And to calculate is quite, it takes time. We can make several cross-sectional images, and we selected the interfacial area or the area of interest, and through a digital imaging software, we can calculate the percentage distribution of the brighter pixels that we find in the marginal, in the margins of the restoration. To tell the truth, OCT doesn't require a contrast agent to see this, but in this specific study, I wanted to enhance this contrast so I can make sure that I can see a gap, or I can see a silver nitrate solution because I immersed as a contrast agent. So that's why I can see very well the margins that are on white. From that, we produce 5 cross-sectional images of the same restoration, like this. And then here you can see the 3D image with the composite, and the 3D image of the presence of gap or silver around the restoration. And this is quite interesting because, as you can see the shape, I used a fine bar, but even though I can still see the scratches and the grooves caused by the bar that I produced this cavity. And here as well, you can see some part of the restoration and the yellow part as gap or silver presence. I used 5 different adhesives to restore this, this cavity. The first one from the left to the right, and I used also aging, so this is all 4 hours storage and 10,000 cycles aging process. And this represents add per single bond 2, which is two-step etch and rinse adhesive. This one represents clear field SE bond after 24 hours and after 10,000 thermocycles. This is for G bond plus, which is a one-step self-etch adhesive, the only one that has HEMA-free, the ones that I used. This one represents the clear field tri-S bond. I think in Japan it's SE1, I believe. And the last one, I tried to use Filtech Silorine system, which is not on the market anymore, but at that time we could still have. And I just wanted to try some different system at that time. From the 2D image, we also compared with the interfacial analysis using confocal laser microscope, and then sometimes we could see gaps between the resin and the adhesive, and sometimes we could see gaps below the adhesive. It's not always the same. And on the same way, from the left to the right, for 24 hours group and the after aging group, this is for the etch and rinse system, clear fill IC bond, the both one-step self-etch adhesive, and the fill textile arrange system. As you can see the bright areas here, which it represents the gap that we could also confirm with the confocal. And from that same cavity, we also produced a microtensile bond strength test. So we also have values from the same cavity. I know it's quite difficult to find articles that correlate both tests, because usually when you have marginal adaptation tests, you have to cut the sample. And in this case, we didn't need to cut. We could see the marginal adaptation, and at the same time using the same tooth to produce microtensile specimens. And from the failure mode of each group, we also obtained, because I used silver as a contrast agent, we also observed different silver particles in each kind of adhesives. Don't ask me why, but I know they look different. I think, and we also evaluated by EDS, confirming the silver presence, and please pay attention that these are all the bottom of the cavities, and we could still see silver staining there. The most representative and most interesting one that I saw was the G-Bond Plus, that you can see a beautiful water tree coming exactly from the scratches caused by the bar. And usually we see on the papers water tree in a different cut, but this, for me at least, I'm not sure if there is another paper that says that, but it was the first time that I see a water tree on the bottom of the cavity, which was quite interesting for me. And I'm sorry I didn't bring my notebook or my data, so it was quite short. But I will be very happy if you could visit me at my poster presentation today in the afternoon, and I can explain more details about my data and the other results. And this is another paper that we produced while I was there. And if anyone is interested in a nice literature review about self-etch adhesive systems, please, we have big names here also too. So I hope we can produce much more from that. Thank you very much. And I will pass to my colleague, Dr. Ana Paula, to continue the presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Just a minute. Good morning, everyone. For me, it's a pleasure to be here again. And when Marcelo made the invitation to share part of his presentation with me, I was very happy but terrified at the same time. I also had short notice to make the presentation, so I apologize in advance if some missing informations, but you can make some questions in the end. And I also would like to acknowledge Janine for the kind words for my presentation. So I combined in this part of the presentation the data that I obtained during my PhD research, and it was made in partnership with the University of Leuven, as I have as mentor there, Bart van Meerbeek. And I don't know if everybody here is know what is plasma and why it could be applied in dental adhesives and dental adhesion. So I will do a short explanation. Plasma is a ionized gas where some particles are in the excited form. So if you give energy in the right way for some gas, you can create free radicals, ions, and molecules excited, and it can make some chemical changes in the surface for many purposes. So what you can find in literature, last year they published at JDR an interesting paper reviewing what we have until now in dentistry for this technology application. And most of them relates some results indicating increase of the surface wettability, a deeper adhesive infiltration in dentin, and also improved resin polymerization and high microtensile bond strain results. And from Tagami's presentation, he said that bond is achieved using the penetration of bonding resin to enable dentin, hardening of the bonding resin, and by chemical reaction between bonding resin and tooth substrates. So part of our data, they fulfill some of these requirements, and that is why we think this technology should be more explored and used in clinical trials to make it available for clinical practice. So I will shortly just show the results of the 4 publications that this work generated. One of them was completely made in Brazil, the first one, and the other 3 were developed in Leuven. Most of them are in the reviewing process, or they have been accepted but are not available yet at PubMed, but you can find one of them already. If some of you were at IAAD at Philadelphia, maybe you had the opportunity to see Bart van Meerbeek's lecture, where he presented part of the results also. So the equipment that we used was developed in Brazil. The commercial name is this one. The feed gas utilized is argon. And here is a short video just showing that we tried to always standardize the distance between the exit nose of the equipment and the sample that was used, dentin sample, flat dentin sample. And we always patronize in 10 millimeters distance from the dentin based in other literature reviews. So for the first publication, it was accepted at the European Journal of Oral Science. And the title is The Effect of Non-Thermal Atmospheric Plasma on Dentin Surface Topography and Composition and Bond Strength of a Universal Adhesive. The adhesive evaluated was Scotch Bond Universal, but before, the samples in this study were divided in 2 types. Dentin slices had the plasma application, and then the physical-chemical properties were evaluated to see if plasma caused some alterations. And after, we evaluated the interface by itself. So for the chemical composition, we used the Raman confocal spectroscopy, and actually we did not see a visible remarkable change in type 1 collagen, carbonate or phosphate spectra after plasma application for 10 or 30 seconds. Only for phosphate, using plasma for 10 seconds, it seems to have a reduction in phosphate, but it was not observed at 30 seconds. So it infers that maybe plasma produce a pellicle of different reactive particles in the surface, but it doesn't alter, at least detectable at the Raman spectroscopy, the chemical composition of dentin. And using atomic force microscopy, we also did not find difference in the roughness means and in the images generated by this technology, either in etched dentin or unetched dentin. So it seems that the effects that plasma produce is not related to a physical alteration of dentin. For microtensile bond strength, samples were restored in the way that I think most of you are familiar. The adhesive was used was Scotch Bond Universal. We opted for a universal adhesive because we don't want to add a variable in this study. We just want to see if plasma has different actions if the dentin is etched or unetched. And also, for us, it was interesting to use two different aging methods that was simulated pupil pressure and direct water exposure. In a simpler explanation, in simulated pupil pressure, the restored tooth is kept without cutting. For this research, we used 1 year. And then the water just came from the pulp chamber as we protected the interface around the tooth. And in direct water exposure, most of the research are performed in this way. The sticks are stored in distilled water, and then they have the entire interface in contact with distilled water. So the results that we obtained, they varied according to the aging condition. In direct water exposition, apparently there was no decrease in the bond strength after 1 year, but we could see some drop for plasma 30 seconds. But this drop was not different from the other compared groups for each of the strategies modes applied. And for simulated pupil pressure, the groups control in self-etch and etching risk mode, they also showed stability after 1 year, but after 1 year it started to present lower results of microtensile bond strength, which can indicate that maybe the plasma application has a beneficial effects for this evaluation. And also, the failure pattern mode was evaluated at SEM evaluation. And what we found was that simulated pupil pressure produced much more adhesive failures than direct water exposition that presented more cohesive failures. And what we know from literature is that adhesive failures, they are really happening in the interface, so they might be more reliable results. Here it's SEM images. In self-etch mode, we cannot see much difference between the groups, but in etching rings, we can observe longer and more numerous tags, especially when 30 seconds plasma was applied. Another evaluation that we did was the in situ zymography. And if you relate these pictures with the next ones, when we have longer and thicker tags, more numerous, we expect that the adhesive is in contact with more dentin, and then it should excite more the metalloproteinases. But on the contrary, for etching rings, after plasma 30 seconds, we could not detect too much green fluorescence related to the metalloproteinase activity, especially in the hybrid layer. While in control groups, either in etching rings than in self-etch, it was more evident in the hybrid layer. This might infer that maybe plasma helps to dissolve better the smear layer in both situations by creating this more reactive surface and increasing the wettability. And then the adhesives might penetrate better and had a better polymerization. But further studies are necessary to confirm this data. So in conclusions for the first study, the non-thermal atmospheric plasma produced no remarkable topographical or chemical alterations of the dentin surface. After 1 year of direct water exposure, the microtensile bond strength of plasma-treated specimens did not differ statistically significantly compared to the untreated controls, but there was very difference between the aging strategies. The dentin enzymatic activity appeared to be treatment dependent, and plasma seems to produce less intense fluorescence in the hybrid layer. And Scotch-Bond Universal maintained its microtensile bond strength high, even after 1 year of both aging conditions. The next study, it was submitted to Operative Dentistry. It's in the reviewing process, the second review. And it basically used the same adhesives, the same steps, but just for direct water exposure, and we evaluated after 2 years of storage. So what we found about this was that after 2 years, for self-etch, we found a difference. All the groups had a drop in the microtensile bond strength, but the plasma just showed some effect when it was applied for 30 seconds in etch and rinse mode, compared to the other groups. For this study, we also evaluated the contact angle before plasma application, after plasma application. 2 substrates were evaluated, that was dentin and hydroxyapatite, because we want to see what was the effect of plasma in the inorganic constituent of the dentin, and what would be the interference of the organic part of the dentin. And this was the equipment used. And we have some difference between the substrates. In dentin, when plasma was applied for 10 seconds, the contact angle dropped, but it was not so much different from the control when compared with plasma applied for 30 seconds. In the inorganic content, just hydroxyapatite blocks, this difference was very great, and even if it was applied for 10 or 30 seconds. So our study confirms previous studies that plasma might enhance the wettability of the substrate. We also evaluated the nanohardness in Young's modulus of the interface, the hybrid layer, the adhesive layer, and the dentin. And we found that when plasma was applied for 30 seconds in both adhesive modes, it seems to have a drop in the nanohardness, but this is not a bad information. It just might infer that the adhesives penetrates more and then the mineralizes more the dentin, even in self-etch condition. But in the hybrid layer, that is more interesting for us, the control groups showed lower results in self-etch and etch and rinse, with plasma application for 10 or 30 seconds, producing higher nanohardness in hybrid layer. And the same was observed for the Young modulus, even in dentin as in the hybrid layer. So to confirm the influence of this change of the properties of the interface, we should associate with fatigue tests that might be used in the future to check if these mechanical properties have some clinical relevance for bonding duration. So the conclusions that we have from this study is that in the etch and rinse mode, the plasma application dentin exhibited higher microtensile bond strength after 2 years of aging. It also presented higher nanohardness and Young's modulus and also hydrophilicity. And the plasma application for 30 seconds seems to be the more indicated treatment time. The third study was using technology that was developed at Biomat, and I have to thank for Pong Pompruxa that teach me about how to perform this new methodology that wants to fit some difficulties that we have with microtensile bond strength. And I hope that this can be developed in more research centers because it's a very interesting, a little bit more critical aspects during the specimen preparation. But if I learned, I think everybody can learn also. So the hypothesis tested in this study was that the plasma treatment would cause some results in the mini IFT, even using just 6 months of artificial aging. And the tooth were split So half of the tooth will receive the plasma application and half of them doesn't receive and then worked as a control group. And because of this modification, we divided the time of plasma application instead of 30 seconds for 15 seconds because the other area was half of the other study. Also, we have to make some modifications from Pong's technique because he started to restore the area of interest in the interface of the crown before use the root, but to make the division of two parts of the dentin, we had to start from the root. But this was good in the end because we could achieve a better parallelism of the final specimens. So here we can see that half of the dentin was protected with aluminum slice, and then the plasma was applied for 15 seconds for the same time that I said before, and then the adhesive was applied. When the etching rings was performed, in the groups where it was performed, the acid etching was applied before the plasma application. So the specimens, they have to be very precise in the sizes of the specimen, and this is just only possible with using acutone. And the more critical part is the production of the notch in the real interface. For this, we use the microscope associated to a very thin diamond blade and an acutone just to make the notch part. So one acutone was to produce these specimens, and another one just to produce the notch part. Because after we produce it and the specimen is tested, we have to measure all the specimens cross-sectional area, and they have to respect some stipulated values for the final KIC values calculation. So here you can see the very thin diamond blade. Here, it's not in the photo, but we were using a microscope to check if it was really assessing the interface. And the data where you could not see dentin one side and resin the other side of the fracture specimens were discarded because it was not really in the interface. And here, the 4-point blending tests with the measures that we perform in the lab. So here is the results. To be, as mini IFT is supposed to be a more precise technology, we thought that maybe after 6 months we could see some difference already from the aging. But actually, even in self-etch or etching rinse mode, the results kept very stable. And what we could check is that most of the papers for Scotch bone universal, they don't find too much difference in microtensile bone strength, even if it was used in etching rinse or self-etch. But mini interfacial fracture toughness seems to be more sensitive, and then self-etch mode produced relatively lower values than etching rinse mode. In the SCM evaluation, I collected some representative areas of each group. So here in the left side, you can see the control groups for etching rings. And in the right side is the etching rings with plasma application. And some current observation that we have is that the presence of numerous tags and thick tags fulfilling most of the dentinal tubules, which was not observed when the control groups were applied. And this confirms also with our previous study when we analyzed the SCM images. For self-etch mode, here you can see the opening tubules, and it seems that the peritubular dentin is a little bit more etched by the monomers, acid monomers of the adhesive when compared with control. So the enhancing the wettability might provoke that the monomers can demineralize more these regions of the interface. As a conclusion, the dentin treatment with plasma did not influence the 6 months mini IFT evaluation. The water storage for 6 months did not show this decrease, but it enabled a better differentiation between the two adhesive modes. And the last study that I'm going to present here is about the mini interfacial fracture toughness of other adhesive systems bonded to plasma-treated dentin, but these ones were kept for 1 year until the mini IFT testing. So what we could find is that the self-etch adhesives that was G-Premium in self-etch mode and Clearfield SC2, they did not suffer any influence of the aging or of plasma application. But in etching rinse mode, OptiBond FL showed a decrease in the mini IFT results. This with or without plasma application, while G-Premium in 1 week and 1 year, the control groups showed lower results of mini IFT. So if somebody wants to have more explanations about this data, this is the theme of my poster presentation today. You are invited to ask me questions and to see my presentation there. And I would like to acknowledge the university where I graduated, made the master's in operative dentistry, my PhD in dental materials. I would like to thank all the professors that helped me in my academic formation. Here is a photo when I just started at the university, and here it was in my defense thesis that was in February of this year. And I kept the same friends, the same positions, and I think it's very important. I believe most of you might have kept also these friendships that are very important in life. Here I just select some pictures. Leuven is a city, very beautiful city. It's small, but it's really worth some visit. Here you can see the city hall. In here is phones that represents the universities, the students, the Sapiens font. And also, I enjoyed very much Benji styles of beers and chocolates and everything. Here is the Biomat. I think you are very familiar with some people from the publications, Jan de Monk, Van Lunduk, Bart van Mierbeek, Annelies Van End, Simone Duarte from Brazil, Márcio Cardoso from Brazil also, Shin, Ivana, Estevan, Ben, that is the laboratory technician, Christina, Simon. And I think it's very interesting that they kept here in the background a map where the former students that passed by Biomat, they have the opportunity to put the picture. So you can see that the Japanese are dominating the map. There's a lot of Japanese going there, including Atsushi and Kumiko that are present here. And Brazilian is also dominating Leuven. And I'm very glad because I could met very formidable people. Some of them are here, like Kumiko in Pong farewell party and at Sushi Mini. And I have a special acknowledge for my advisor, Marcelo Giannini. We worked together since 2008. Where I started in research, and he came to visit me at Leuven. It was very nice from him. And also Bart van Mierbeek, that he make me feel at home there, and he helped me in everything. We keep in touch. He's helped me with the publications. So I think it was a very great responsibility to be here today, representing everything that we worked together until now. And also I have to thank FAPESP and CNPq for the research grant during these years, and the companies that provided the products utilized in this research. And here is my contact if you need some more explanations. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for the great presentations. I'm going to open for questions right now. Does anyone has a paper? Questions, please? Anna, can I ask you a question? I guess we have to come back some slides from the beginning of your presentation when you mentioned some effects of plasma on dentin surface, that you said that the mineral composition did not change, but phosphorus decrease, and phosphate, just phosphate, okay. And you mentioned that there was, you suppose there is a pellicle formed on dentin because of plasma. Did you have the chance of looking at this pellicle? What do you think it is?
Yeah, this is the. It's working? Yeah, this was more the most confusing data of all the results. We even consider don't put the 10 seconds plasma application because they have some strange results also in demography in situ. But we believe that maybe the methodology chosen for this evaluation was not the best one, because if I come back there, we can see that the standard deviation just for phosphate was the highest one. For collagen and for carbonate, they were not that big. I'll just come back. Oh, sorry, just a minute. So I think even this pellicle formed with chemical reactions, maybe it can confuse during the analysis of this element. Here, we can see the standard deviation for these elements are much higher than for collagen, type 1, and carbonate. And we repeated the study, but the same pattern was found. So I don't have too much explanation. Maybe further investigations are incentivized.
Thank you. Anybody? For Patricia or
I have a question. I have a question for Patricia. Did you quantify the bonded area in your restorations when you did the 3D reconstruction?
Actually, on the 3D reconstruction, we cannot quantify because we don't have the machine that has the memory enough, and to calculate this amount of data we will need much more of the computer. So that's why we decided to have cross-sectional images, like 2D images, and from that we can get the average that we can base the 3D. And
but for the 2D images, did you calculate the percentage of debonding?
The debonding, no, just because we can see only the gap formation or the silver presence. So if you say that there is a gap, so yes, if you consider like that, yes, the bonding area, the gap presence. Yes.
How much was the gap area or the gap length?
Okay, so can I answer you later, because I cannot remember the number right now.
Okay.
But yes, we calculated.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone wants to have any question? No? Now, for giving the certificates, I'd like to call Dr. Tagami to give Dr. Janine the certificate, and the girls, please come forward, that Janine will give you the certificate. Thank you very much for the three of you. No, that's fine. Picture. While they're taking the pictures, I'd like to ask anyone who lost a key since yesterday. I don't think this key is very important because it's here since yesterday. So And there is another message. I asked you about the questionnaire from JSPS. This questionnaire is very important for the young researchers. So if there is any young researcher that did not receive the questionnaire, please let me know so we can provide you, okay? Okay. If you can just ask me later, right? Now we are moving forward to the next presentation. We have now Dr. Toru Nikaido presenting the assessment of adhesive materials for direct composite restorations. Dr. Nikaido is the senior lecturer at the Department of Cardiology and Operative Dentistry at the Graduate School of Medical and Dental Sciences at Tokyo Medical and Dental University. Okay, Dr. Nikaido, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for your presence.
Bon dia. I'm Toru Nikaido, Tokyo Medical and Dental University. So first of all, I'd like to say many thanks to Dr. Marcel Giannini, so my old friend, for his great effort to coordinate this symposium. And also, I'd like to say many thanks all the academic staff and the participants for the great cooperation of this event. So today's my title is the assessment of adhesive materials for direct composite restoration. First, so this is the first time to visit Brazil. So this is the first time in 2003. So I was invited as a guest researcher from Professor Mario de Goes. So thank you very much, Mario. And this is a picture taken at the TMDU, not a TMDU, close to the Japanese bar. So we take the picture after drinking. Of course, the Professor Tagami joined the party. So this is very important picture for me. So do you remember 2002? 2002, so we organized the World Cup in Japan, and this is the Nissan Stadium, Yokohama, and this is the stadium to hold the final game, Brazil versus Germany, and Brazil won the championship. So we respect the Brazilian team very much, and this is a Nissan Stadium tour, and this is amazement. So we preserve the locker room, so the Brazilian players' uniform kept. So the Ronaldinho, Roberto Carlos, right? And Marcelo wore the Japanese Serason uniform at that time. And this is also the Yokohama Stadium. So we went to the Yokohama Stadium to watch the Japanese J League. So he demonstrates his team, Guarani. And this is my team, Yokohama F. Marinos. Okay, so first I want to explain about the background of the development of adhesive monomers. So Professor Masahara and Nakabayashi is at Tokyo Medical and Dental University created the concept. So the concept is to create a biomimetic structure. So that is very good for improvement of the resin monomer. So this is the very conventional biomembrane model. So the biomembrane is composed of the phospholipid. So the phospholipid create two double structure. So the phospholipid has two parts. This is a hydrophilic part, and this is a hydrophobic part. So the hydrophobic part faces outside. So outside is the water, and inside is the hydrophobic. So if we create the hydrophobic and hydrophilic structure, so that is very, maybe that is improve the bonding. So this is a basic structure of the functional monomer. So the functional monomer is composed of three parts. So double bond and connecting group and adhesion promoting group. Actually, there are many types of the adhesion promoting group. So this one is for the bonding for the ceramic, and this is for this is also for the metal. And today, so we focus on this one, the carboxyl group and the phosphoric acid group. So this is very important to improve the bonding to enamel and dentin. So yesterday, so Professor Tagami already explained about the chemical reaction of the functional monomer. So the Dr. Yoshida and Van Meerbeek group reported the chemical bonding strengths of the functional monomer to hydroxyapatite. So from their study, so they reported the strongest chemical bonding was obtained in the MDP, and format is the second, and the phenyl P is the worst. Actually, the phenyl P has no chemical reaction to hydroxyapatite. So this is the structure for the dentin bonding mechanism. Actually, this is a conventional dentin bonding mechanism proposed by Professor Nakabayashi in 1982. So this is a dentin structure. So we apply the adhesive monomer on the dentin. So the monomer penetrate into the underlying dentin and then cured. So the dentin bonding mechanism has two parts, the penetration of monomer and the polymerization, and resulting in the hybridization. So the hybrid layer formation between the resin polymer and the dentin. So this is Professor Nakabayashi, and actually he's my mentor at a PhD student. So another name is Dr. Hybrid. So this is the new concept of the interface. So this is a hybrid layer, but after the acid-base challenge, so there is another layer discovered. So we call acid-base resistance zone. And we also observe this layer at the enamel interface. Now, yesterday, so Professor Tagami already explained about the superdentin. So that is the terminology superdentin was already accepted. So I want to move on the dentin bonding mechanism. So we try to classify the dentin bonding mechanism into three categories. So 3-step, and 2-step, and 1-step. So 3-step dentin bonding mechanism is composed of the etchant, primer, and the bonding resin. The typical bonding resin is the Scotch Bond multipurpose 3M SP or Optibond FL car. But this is very complicated in the clinic. So the manufacturer try to simplify the bonding steps. So the Japanese manufacturer try to simplify the etchant and primer into self-etching primer. So the two-step self-etching primer system is composed of the self-etching primer and bonding resin. So these are typical two-step self-etching system, clear-field SE bond, now the clear-field SE bond 2, and off-bond clear-field protect bond, and FL bond 2, Shofu. But this is also two-step, so the manufacturer try to more simplify from two-step to one-step. Another name is all-in-one adhesive. So now there are many types of the all-in-one adhesive in the market. Thank you. But another classification is etch and rinse system. So the mainly the United States and Europe manufacturer try to simplify the primer and the bond into self-priming bond. So this two-step system composed of the etchant and self-priming bond. And this one required the wet bonding system, wet bonding technique. So the typical one is a single bond plus 3M SPE, prime bond NT dense ply, and one step visco. But nowadays, so universal bond is a trend. The universal bond is basically categorized in the all-in-one adhesive, and also this one has the acid etching mode. So I want to talk about the universal bond at the last part of my presentation. So in vitro assessment of secondary caries has a long historical background because the secondary caries is one of the main reasons for replacement of the restoration. So this is a definition of the secondary caries formation around the restoration. So this is a restoration, so maybe the amalgam restoration or the glass ionomer cement because there is no hybrid layer, and this is dentin. So after the acidic challenge, so this is a demineralized dentin. So in the clinic, so this is a primary dentin caries. But the secondary caries is along the interface between the restoration and the dentin. This is a secondary caries in clinic. So in the past, so the assessment of the secondary caries in vitro was done in the photomicroscope, laser scanning microscope, or TMR. But these are very low resolution, so we cannot detect the very slight change of the interface of the resin composite because the hybrid layer is very small. So now we start the assessment of the secondary caries using SEM and TEM. So this is the first paper by our previous graduate student, Tsuchiya. So she used the bovine root, and she prepared the class 1 cavity on the root dentin, and she filled some different types of the adhesive system, and then the specimen was soaked in the demineralization solution for 20 minutes. Then also the specimen was soaked in the sodium hypochlorite for 20 minutes to remove the exposed dentin, the demineralized dentin. And then the cut and polish, and she observed the interface. So this is a first paper reported in the Journal of Adhesive Dentistry in 2004. So this is an interface. This is a clear-field SE bonding resin. This is dentin. And after the acid-base challenge, so the dentin is demineralized. But under the higher magnification, so this is a hybrid layer. after the acid argon ion etching. But beneath the hybrid layer, we can observe the acid-base resistance zone here. But this area is not so beautiful. So Dr. Inoue established the specimen preparation to observe the ABRZ by SEM and TEM. So this is the result. So reported in Operative Dentistry 2006. So this is again clear-field SE bond. So this is a bonding resin, and this is dentin. So after the argon ion etching, the hybrid layer about 1 micrometer thick was visualized. But beneath the hybrid layer, we can clearly detect the 1 micrometer thick ABRZ. So, and 2009, so we also published the TEM study. So this is a TEM picture. So clear-field SE bond, this one, because this is a micro fillers inside of the clear-field SE bond, and this is dentin. And this transparent layer is the hybrid layer. And beneath the hybrid layer, you can see the dark area. So that means the ABRZ contain the hydroxyapatite. So the ABRZ contain the apatite. So that means that is a very dentin-like structure. But after acid-base damage, so the dentin is demineralized. But this has more resistance against the acid-base challenge. So that is more careless resistance. So we can say this is a reinforced dentin after application of the adhesive system. So we propose the new terminology, superdentin. So we talk about the interface using a self-etching system, and this is a etch and rinse system using a phosphoric acid. The single bond plus is composed of the 5% phosphoric acid and adhesive. And etch and wet bonding technique is required. So this is a picture of the dentin surface after phosphoric acid etching. So this is the dentin surface. So you can see the smear layer completely removed and the dentin tubule open. And this is a cross-sectional area. So this is the dentin tubules. And you can see the 4 to 5 micrometer thick demineralized dentin. So that is very aggressive compared to the self-etching system. So this is the TEM observation of the interface of the single bond plus to dentin after acid-base challenge. This is the dentin single bond resin side. This is dentin side. So after acid-base challenge, so you can see the dentin demineralized. And this is a very thick, you can see the hybrid layer. Hybrid layer is around 3 to 4 micrometer thick. And this is a resin tag formation into the dentin tubules. But unfortunately, there is no ABRZ formation in the etch and rinse system. So clear-field SE bond is two-step self-etching system. So this is the interface using a Tokuyama bond force. This is an all-in-one adhesive. So this is a composite. This is dentin, bonding resin, and this is dentin. So you can see very thin, but we can observe the ABRZ formation at the interface. And surprisingly, so there is a slope formation because bond force release the fluoride. So maybe this slope is due to the fluoride releasing. So we compare the morphological differences between the fluoride-free and fluoride-releasing adhesive. So in this case, so we use 3 different types of the two-step self-etching system. Clearfield Megabond, SE bond, is a fluoride-free adhesive. Imperva fluorobond, that is a fluoride-releasing adhesive because the fluoride imperva fluorobond contain the FPRG filler. That is a surface-reacted, surface pre-reacted glass ionomer filler. So that is a possibility to release fluoride. And this is a fluorobond 2. The fluorobond 2 contain SPRG filler. So that is a surface-reacted glass ionomer cement. So now the Shofu used the SPRG filler because the SPRG filler release fluoride much more than FPRG filler. So this is a Clearfield SE bond, fluoride free, and this is a fluoride releasing from the FPRG filler. This is a fluorobond 2, the fluoride release from the SPRG filler. So you can see, so this is a ABRZ, and this is also the very thin, but you can observe the ABRZ. And in the fluorobond 2, so you can see slope formation. Maybe the fluorobond 2 release the high amount of the fluoride. So this is a SEM picture of the bonding resin. So this is a SPRG filler particle. So we did, this is a SEM picture, and we analyzed the surface. So this is a result. So this is a SPRG filler. So we detect the fluorine, F ions on the SPRG filler surface. So we summarize this phenomenon in this illustration. So this is a no hybrid layer, and this is a hybrid layer formation. That means, so this is like an amalgam restoration. So the amalgam restoration just attached to the dentin without hybrid layer. So after the acid-base challenge, so the wall region created along the interface. So that is clinically the secondary caries. But if we use the adhesive materials with the resin composite, for example, the acid etching system, so the hybrid layer created, but no acid-base resistance zone. But the hybrid layer can prevent the secondary caries. But if we use the self-etching system, so self-etching system creates very thin hybrid layer, and under the hybrid layer, the acid-base resistance zone created. So that is very important in clinic. So if we use the self-etching adhesive in the clinic, so the self-etching system protects the dentin around the restoration. The mechanism of the hybrid layer and the ABR formation still unclear, but the definition of the hybrid layer is penetration and polymerization. But I suppose the mechanism of ABRZ is a penetration and chemical reaction to hybrid layer, hydroxyapatite. So this is the dentin, and this is a functional monomer. So maybe the functional monomer penetrate deeper than we expected before. And there is two parts on the underground dentin. So this is totally, completely demineralized dentin. So no hydroxyapatite. Maybe after the R1 ion etching, so this layer can be visualized as a hybrid layer. And this is a partially demineralized layer. That means this area has partially remained the hydroxyapatite. So the hydroxyapatite and functional monomer has the chemical reaction together and create the ABRZ. And also, the fluoride release is very important to create a slope formation. So the ABRZ is the layer of the reinforced layer of the tooth structure. So we propose the super tooth. Now I want to move to the enamel ABRZ. So this is a chemical formula of phosphoric acid monomers. So this is the MDP, and this is phenyl P. So again, so the MDP has the strongest chemical reaction to the hydroxyapatite. And the phenyl P has no reaction, just phenyl P as the etchant in the presence of the water. So in this experiment, so we prepare two different types of the two-step self-etching adhesive system. So this is code is MM and PP. So code MM mean the primer contain MDP, and bonding resin also contain MDP. So this ingredient is the same of the Clearfield SE bond. And this one is the phenyl P in primer instead of MDP, and the phenyl P instead of the MDP in bond. So we call MM and PP. So this is just a detailed ingredient of two adhesive system. So the other ingredient, the composition is same, just MDP, MDP, and phenyl P and phenyl P. And in this case, so we apply this two adhesive system to enamel. So this is dentin. I skipped the dentin, so I focus on the enamel. So in this case, so we use the human premolar, and we cut and obtain the enamel disc, and apply the one of two adhesive system and the resin composite and embedded, and then the surface interface subjected to the acid-base challenge, and then cut and observed by SEM. So this is the result of the MDP. So this is the enamel. This is enamel. This is a composite. This is a bonding resin, two-step self-etching system. So this is a higher magnification. So this is enamel. So there is no hybrid layer. But surprisingly, we can observe this is the interface, but beneath the interface, we can observe another layer. So we call enamel ABRZ. So this is the higher magnification. So this is in case of the MDP. This is phenyl P. Phenyl P two-step self-etching system. So surprisingly, so there is the erosion at the interface. And the higher magnification, there is no enamel ABRZ. So maybe this difference is due to the chemical reaction. The MDP is create a very strong chemical reaction and create the MDP hydroxyapatite salt. But phenyl P just demineralized, but there is no reaction. So in the phenyl P, So there is no enamel ABRZ, but there is a erosion along the interface. So from this result, the selection of the functional monomer is a key to create ABRZ. So now I want to explain about the universal adhesive system. So universal system is a self-etching system, all-in-one adhesive, but also, so this also used as the etch and rinse mode. So at that time, the wet bonding technique is required. But in the clinic, so this is very sensitive. Sometimes we can successfully create the moist dentin surface, but sometimes so that is dry. So we evaluate the morphological differences using a moist mode and a dry mode also. And in the enamel bonding, so the selective etching is also the topic. So we also discuss about the selective etching. So this is a Scotch bond universal 3M SP, 3M. So this is a wet bonding technique for the dentin bonding system, dentin bonding. And this is a selective etching for enamel. So this is a self-etching mode. So first, I want to talk about the dentin ABRZ. So we use 3 different types of the adhesive. So this is a clear-free SE bond, 2-step self-etching system. This is an OptiBond car, XTR car. So that is also very good 2-step self-etching system. And this is a universal adhesive, Scotch bond universal. So this is the characteristics of the adhesive system. So again, the clear-free SE bond, sorry, this is a clear-free SE bond 2. So clear-free SE bond 2 contain MDP as a functional monomer. And OptiBond XTR contain GPDM. This is also a very good phosphoric acid monomer. And Scotch bond universal. So there is self-etching mode and etch and rinse mode. And we divide it into subgroups. So etch and rinse with a moist condition and etch and rinse with a dry condition. So the Scotch bond universal also contain MDP. So I skipped the specimen preparation for the dentin ABRZ. So this is a resin, and this is dentin. And this is a clear-free SE bond 2. And this is a clear-free OptiBond XTR. Both are the 2-step self-etching system. So after the acid-base challenge, so again, so we can observe the ABRZ, and the surface is very beautiful. And also in the XTR, so this is ABRZ, a little bit thicker than the SE bond 2. And you can see the slope formation at the bottom of the ABRZ. That is maybe due to the fluoride release from the XTR. So this is a universal bond. So this is a self-etching mode. This is a etch and rinse mode. And this is with a moist condition. This is a dry condition. So first, I want to explain about self-etching mode. So we can see very thin but ABRZ created. But unfortunately, under the ABRZ, so we can always observe the funnel-shaped region here. So that means this area is weak point for the acid acidic challenge. So this is a etch and rinse mode. So again, so for the etch and rinse mode, so we first apply the phosphoric acid. So there is no ABRZ formation. And here, so we can see the deterioration of the hybrid layer. So that is much higher deterioration in the dry condition. So from this result, so we don't recommend the use of the universal bond and etch and rinse mode. But also we are from this result, the self-etching mode is also not reliable because of the funnel shape erosion created. So we talk about the enamel ABRZ using a universal bond. So in this case, so we use 5 different types of the adhesive. So again, this is 2-step clear-free AC bond. This is an OptiBond XTR, and 3 all-in-one adhesive. So this is a universal adhesive. So again, so the SE contain MDP, and this is a clear-free bond SE1. This is also contain MDP, and the Scotch bond March Purple universal contain MDP. And the OptiBond XTR contain GPDM, and other easy bond also contain the different types of the phosphoric acid monomer. So I skip this illustration for preparation of the sample preparation to observe the enamel ABRZ. So you can see this is the enamel, this is the enamel, and this is a clear-free AC bond. So you can see the enamel ABRZ. So the surface is very beautiful. This is a OptiBond XTR. This is enamel. So the enamel ABRZ is thicker than the SE bond, but this is also very beautiful. So this is a clear-free SE1 all-in-one adhesive. So you can see very thin ABRZ, but unfortunately, a very wide erosion occurred. Again, the clear-free SE1 contain MDP, but all-in-one adhesive create erosion beneath the ABRZ. This is a 3M easy bond. So this is a very thin ABRZ. Again, the erosion occurred. This is a universal adhesive. Same. So from our result, so the functional monomer is very important, but also the system is very important. Two-step system create very beautiful morphology, but for all of the adhesive tested in our lab, create the ABRZ, but under the ABRZ, we can observe the erosion. So that's the problem for the all-in-one adhesive. But if we apply the phosphoric acid before application of the all-in-one adhesive, so there is no erosion created and very thick enamel ABRZ created. So if we use the all-in-one adhesive, so we recommend the use of the selective etching using phosphoric acid. So I want to summarize my presentation. So assessment of the ABRZ formation is very important to understand the quality of the interface to consider the bonding mechanism. And the morphological difference of the ABRZ formation may be a strong indicator to predict dentin enamel bonding durability. And at this moment, a two-step cell edge adhesive is the most reliable bonding system. Today, I just focus on the direct bonding system. But another topic is a resin coating technique for indirect restorations. So actually, immediate dentin sealing is a terminology, but actually the concept of the resin coating technique started from Japan in early 1990s. So this is a review paper. So we review the resin coating technique. So this is an online journal, current oral health report. So Tagami, Professor Tagami is a section editor. So if you are interested in this topic, so please download. So this is an online journal without the free of charge. So this is a sakura, cherry blossom. So yesterday, so maybe you enjoyed the Japanese sake, and we also enjoy the Japanese sake under the cherry blossom in the spring. Obrigado.
Thank you so much, Professor, Doctor, for the wonderful presentations. Now, does anyone want to make questions? No? Dr. Giannini, could you come forward? Questions? So, if anyone wants to ask anything, I'm going to ask Dr. Giannini to come forward to give Dr. Nikaido the certificate and a present. Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank
It
you.
was a great lecture.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the oral presenters, please check with Dr. Gabriel if everything's okay for the presentations. And for the other researchers, you are welcome to go to the coffee break until 11. Okay, thank you.
Voltando, você fala para as pessoas que quem não tem
O
questionário,
Tá.
quem não tem questionário, por favor, pegar comigo, a gente tem que preencher.
Tá joia. Hi everyone. Can I ask you to, so we can begin? I'm gonna ask those, Dr. Rodriguez, I guess he's at the door. Wait a minute. So, getting back to the presentations, I'm going to call now Dr. Odair Bin Jr. so we can begin the young Brazilian and Japanese presenters, research presenters. And Dr. Odair Bin Jr., he is a postdoc student of the program of Applied Oral Sciences of São Paulo State University at Bauru. He's going to present optimal fluorescent dye concentrations in dental adhesives for imaging interfaces. Thank you so much for the presentation. And we're going to have the 15 minutes presentation and then the questions that you can write it down if you want. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Odair. I am from Bauru School of Dentistry of University of São Paulo. Oh, thank you. Is that ready? Okay, thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you today as one of the young Brazilian researchers. And I'm going to talk today about my research on optimal fluorescent dye concentrations in dental adhesives for imaging interfaces. Okay. Is that better? All right. Sorry, thank you. We're not getting acquainted here. Okay, the laser is here. Well, fluorescence is an impressive phenomenon, and it can help the dental researchers investigate the interfaces between the tooth and restorative material. To obtain that image, I had to disperse a fluorescent dye called rhodamine B into a dentin adhesive. And then the resin distribution could be tracked using the confocal laser scanning microscope. The resin distribution dentin. Different fluorescent dyes have been added to different categories of dental resin-based materials. But is it safe to add dyes to these materials? I mean, can a dye affect resin properties and ultimately compromise the morphological patterns that the dye enables us to see? Well, that's indeed a concern. Dalpino and colleagues demonstrated that certain amounts of rhodamine B can affect both the polymerization and bond strength of a two-step total etch adhesive. But unfortunately, there's not much information available regarding the addition of dyes to different categories of adhesive systems, such as the three-step total etch and the two-step self-etch ones, regarded as the gold standards in adhesive dentistry. Also, the association with other fluorescent dyes, such as fluoresceins, hasn't been investigated in deep. So, based in this context, the objective of this work is to provide systematic methodologies to determine optimal fluorescent agent concentration in dental adhesives for identifying their spatial distribution in the dentin adhesive interface using the confocal laser scanning microscope. In this investigation, we utilized two fluorescent dyes, rhodamine B and fluorescent sodium, basically because these are traditional dyes. They present excellent photophysical properties. They're inexpensive and soluble in different polar and non-polar solvents. It was also necessary to select a range of concentrations of dyes to work on, and we had to refer to the pertinent literature to select these concentrations, and we chose the concentrations of 0.5, 0.1, 0.02, and 0.004 milligram per milliliter of each dye in the adhesives, okay? So rhodamine B and fluorescent sodium were added at these 4 decreasing concentrations to a 3-step total etch and a 2-step self-etch adhesives, actually only to the bond components in this occasion, and by means of an indirect staining method. And the question here is, I can read the question, sorry. What is the optimal concentration of each dye in each adhesive? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. So what is the optimal concentration of each dye in each adhesive? Okay, to answer that question, we propose to follow these 3 method steps. Well, the first method step is the investigation of the emission and excitation profiles of each dye in a specific material. This was performed by using photoluminescence spectroscopy, and it's actually a very important step to determining the optimal conditions, the optimal experimental conditions for the confocal laser scanning microscopy. For example, here I'm showing the emission spectra of rhodamine B in the total etch and self-etch adhesives. You may note that the spectral profiles are very similar within and between the groups. What's interesting, though, is that the maximum emission wavelength is different according to the dye concentration. The emission peaks shifted to shorter concentrations with decreasing the concentration of rhodamine B in the adhesives. So why is this information relevant? Well, this information can be helpful for selecting an appropriate detection window or emission wave band for the confocal microscopy analysis of the corresponding samples, which can be broad like that for single labeling procedures, or narrow like that and preferably centered to the emission peaks for multi-labeling procedures to avoid crosstalk between different dyes emission bands. It is also important to understand the excitation behavior of a dye in a specific material. For example, these are the excitation spectra of fluorescing sodium in the two-step self-etch adhesive. And it turns out that the excitation peak, or the maximum excitation wavelength, occurred or appeared either in the blue color region or in the purple-violet color region, depending on the concentration of fluorescent sodium in this adhesive. This is specific behavior of fluorescent sodium in this self-etch adhesive. Why is this information important? Well, based on this information, I can select the most convenient laser lines in the confocal microscope to do the excitation of the corresponding samples during the analysis. So this first step is very important because if I know this information, I can extract the best of fluorescence of each dye during the confocal microscopy analysis, okay? Well, the second step is target dye concentrations. How can I select target dye concentrations among those initial concentrations? Well, the easiest way to do that is to analyze the dye-containing resins under the confocal microscope using standardized settings for each dye, so that it's possible to monitor the effect of the dye concentration on fluorescence intensity. So here we have micrographs of the adhesives containing rhodamine B at top and fluorescent sodium at bottom. And I know they may seem just like a bunch of colored squares, but they're actually very useful to me. At this stage, I can certainly discard concentrations that produce weaker faded signals, and I can also discard the concentrations that produce oversaturated signals compared to lower concentrations, such as 0.5 milligram per milliliter of rhodamine B in the adhesive. So now note that I have only a few target concentrations of each dye in each adhesive. And I want to test, I want to verify the performance of these target concentrations in denting. The question here is, do these target concentrations perform really well for imaging the dent adhesive interface? And yes, it was possible to obtain good images, satisfactory images of the resin distribution in denting using the target concentrations of rhodamine B, using adhesives prepared with these target concentrations of 0.1 and 0.02 milligram per milliliter of rhodamine B. We tested a concentration one step below the target ones, and we could not obtain satisfactory images. The images were faded and noisy at the expense of an increased laser intensity and voltage on the photomultiplier tube. It was also possible to get good images, acceptable images of the resin distribution in denting using the target concentration of fluorescent sodium of 0.5 milligram per milliliter. Lower concentrations than that didn't produce acceptable results with balanced confocal microscopy settings. You may be wondering about morphological differences arising from particular dye adhesive combinations. Well, these differences may be due to the adhesive bonding mechanism, the solubility of different dyes in different solvents, possible dye leaching from the resin materials to adjacent tissues, and also the fluorescent behavior of a dye in different media. In the case of fluoresceins, it's important to consider the pH dependence of fluoresceins in different media, okay? Well, the third and last step, once I have defined my optimal concentrations, I need to verify if those concentrations of dye can affect some resin properties, because I don't want them to, okay? We know that hybridization relies basically on two processes. The first one is resin infiltration in demineralized dentin, and then in situ polymerization, right? That's why we considered it was important, it was relevant to analyze, to evaluate if the addition of these dyes to these resins could affect the wettability and degree of conversion of the resins. The wettability was evaluated in terms of contact angle measurements. This was a preliminary investigation, so we measured the contact angle of the dye, of the control and dye-containing adhesives, of drops actually of the control and dye-containing adhesives on polymethyl methacrylate blocks, standardized blocks, very smooth, to do this investigation, and the axisymmetric drop shape analysis was utilized as a method for determining the contact angles. Here I'm showing the results of contact angle for the 3-step total etch and 2-step self-etch adhesives, and it turns out that in their control and dye-containing versions, of course, it turns out that the means of the dye-containing adhesives were not statistically different from their corresponding controls. So at these concentrations, at these 4 decreasing concentrations, the addition of rhodamine B or fluorescent sodium did not affect the contact angle, okay, of the resins. We also evaluated the degree of conversion using infrared spectroscopic data, and the samples were analyzed by the reflectance method. And here I have the results of conversion for the 3-step total etch and 2-step self-etch adhesives in their control and dye-containing versions. It turns out that the means of the dye-containing adhesives were not statistically different from their corresponding controls. So apparently at these concentrations, even at the higher concentration of 0.5 milligram per milliliter, these dyes are safe in terms of wetting behavior and degree of conversion for these resins. The use of these dyes shouldn't be problematic. Well, as a conclusion, I wouldn't like to highlight what is an optimal or ideal concentration of each dye in each adhesive. I would like to focus on the method. So, take into account aspects related to dye type and concentration, the fluorescent behavior in different host media, specimen morphology, and resin properties. We believe that the approaches in this work can deliver a more reliable use of fluorescent agents with resin-based dental materials. I'd like to say thank you to Professor Linda Wang for the opportunity to develop this work. Thank you to my colleagues from Bordeaux School of Dentistry. And thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you. I'd be happy to take your question, and happier if I know the answers.
Questions? We have for these Brazilian and Japanese young researchers, Dr. Janine and Professor Tagami as the evaluators, so, but you can also ask questions.
Thank you very much for the lecture. I worked with rhodamine B during my master's, and something I was questioned about was during the defense of my thesis, I was questioned if rhodamine B had some kind of interaction with the adhesive system, or if it could be only a passive diffusion through the tubules. So I was questioned if the the amount of red we saw infiltrating dentin was really the adhesive infiltrating dentin, or if it could be just rhodamine B, just the passive diffusion of the dye. What do you think about that?
Hi, thank you for your question. There is evidence in that publication from Dalpino and colleagues that rhodamine B can leach from the resin materials to the adjacent tissues. But during your sample preparation, you probably use a low speed cutting machine or waffering blade irrigated with water. So the dye that has been leached probably will go out, you know. And before you test your samples, they will probably be stored in an aqueous media, right? So yes, it is possible that rhodamine can leach to the adjacent tissues, but I don't know. I can say to what extent this is really a concern during the confocal microscopy analysis. As for a possible interaction between rhodamine and the adhesives, I would like to say, I would like to manifest these thoughts. So I worked with concentrations here in milligram per milliliter. The highest concentration was 0.5 milligram per milliliter of rhodamine B in the resins, right? It turns out that if you consider the total amount of monomers in an adhesive formulation, 0.5 milligram per milliliter of rhodamine B would be roughly 0.05% in mass percent of the total amount of monomer. So you have this amount of monomer to this little amount of rhodamine B. If an interaction would occur, just a little amount of monomers or resin would interact with that thing, you know? And since you have good results with rhodamine B, you can see it is working at this low concentrations. I don't think if interactions really occur, okay? And the results of degree of conversion, for example, maybe they confirm that an interaction which could compromise the effect of the dye is not occurring because the degree of conversion was not altered with the. Okay, so I hope I have answered your question. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation.
You're very welcome.
So you apply this fluorescence dye in the two-step system and three-step system.
Yes.
But now the all-in-one adhesive is very popular. So how about the application of this dye in the all-in-one system? Is that possible?
I guess so. We actually, at Baldwin School of Dentistry, probably have used fluorescent dyes with universal adhesives, right? But in terms of study of the fluorescent behavior of the dyes and the possible effect on resin properties, this would require further investigation.
Yeah, because I'm concerned about the composition of the all-in-one adhesive. All-in-one adhesive contain ethanol or acetone and also water. So that is also the influence the
an interaction. Yes, potentially. So this would maybe require further investigation. But the idea of this work is to provide a strategy for identifying this possible issues with dye and the resin adhesive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question, Dr. Nikaido. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? No? So I made a mistake. It's not Professor Tagami, the evaluator, it's Dr. Nikaido. So I'm going to ask Dr. Nikaido to come over so he can give Dr. Odair Jr. his certificate. Thank you so much. The next presenter is Dr. Nanako Hirose that will present influence of MDPB containing disinfectant on bonding of self-etching adhesives. Dr. Hirose is a clinical staff of the Graduate School of Dentistry from Osaka University in Japan. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Hirose.
Thank you for introduction. Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Nanako Hirose. I'm from Department Restorative Dentistry and Endodontology, Osaka University, Japan. Today, I would like to talk to you about novel cavity disinfectant containing antibacterial monomer. The title of my talk is Influence of MDPB containing disinfectant on bonding of self-etch adhesives. Here is the outline of my presentation. First of all, I would like to mention the necessity of cavity disinfectant. Not only composite resin filling, but also indirect restorations, such as crown and bridge restorations or covered up. The cavity disinfectants are used to eradicate residual bacteria in tooth structure or bacteria which infect dentin during provisional restorations. However, according to the previous study, treatment with cavity disinfectants such as sodium hypochlorite, hydrogen peroxide, or chlorhexidine solution have been reported to adversely affect the bonding ability of some adhesives. So it is important to develop a new disinfectant which has a reliable disinfecting effect but shows no influences on bonding ability of adhesives. By the way, antibacterial resin monomer MDPB is a polymerizable bactericide synthesized by combining quaternary ammonium with a methacrylyl group. And because of its rapid bactericidal activity at unpolymerized stage, MDPB has been incorporated into self-etching primer to provide cavity disinfecting effects, and the antibacterial adhesive systems for composite resin filling was successfully commercialized as Clearfill Protect Bond. Using MDPB, we developed an experimental cavity disinfectant by dissolving MDPB at 5% into 80% ethanol solution. We reported about its antibacterial effect and influences on bonding ability of self-adhesive cements in Journal of Dental Research in 2016. In order to assess disinfecting effects, the S-mutans infected dentin model was created. These images show SEM image and the microscope image after brown brain staining of infected dentin model. Bacterial penetration into dentinal tubules were confirmed. Bacterial level in infected dentin model was suitable to mimic the condition where caries removal is insufficient or infection occurs after tooth preparation. We reported that complete killing of bacteria in the block was obtained by application of experimental cavity disinfectant, while chlorhexidine solution chlorhexidine solution showed no significant reduction in bacterial number compared with no treatment group. In addition, to evaluate the influences on the bonding ability of self-adhesive cement, shear bond strength test of Clearfield SA cement auto mix and Panavia F2.0 after application of cavity disinfectant were measured. For Clearfield SA cement auto mix, application of experimental cavity disinfectant demonstrated no adverse influences on bonding ability to enamel and dentin, while application of chlorhexidine solution showed significant reduction in bonding strength to dentin. For Panavia F2.0, application of both cavity disinfectant showed no adverse influences on bonding ability to enamel and dentin. Today, I would like to report on the influences on the bonding ability of self-etch adhesives. So the aim of this study was to evaluate the influences of the MDPP containing cavity disinfectant on dentin bonding ability of self-etch adhesives. Here is the materials and methods. The experimental cavity disinfectant was prepared by dissolving MDPP at 5% into 80% ethanol solution. It was coded as SCC. As comparison, composition of the experimental cavity disinfectant was decided based on the information given by previous study about develop MDPP containing self-etching primer. For comparison, 2% chlorhexidine solution was included. It was coded CHX. To evaluate the influence of SCC application on bonding ability of self-etch adhesives to dentin, 3 self-etch adhesives were used. One-step self-etch adhesives, Clearfield Bond SE1, and Scotch Bond Universal Adhesive, and 2-step self-etch adhesives, Clearfield SE Bond were used. They are coded as SEO, SBU, and SEB respectively. For measurement of microtensile bond strength of each self-etching adhesive, specimens were prepared. In total, 16 non-callous human molars were randomly divided into 4 groups. The crucial enamel of the crown was removed, and dentin surface was polished with 600 grit silicone carbide paper. To eliminate the influence of differences among the teeth, one tooth divided into 3 pieces for ACC, CHX, and control group. For the experimental group, ACC and CHX were applied on dentin surface for 30 seconds and dried with air blow. Application of no disinfectant is served as a control. For one-step self-etch adhesives, SEO or SBU was applied on the dentin surface, dried with air blow, and light cured, according to the manufacturer's instruction. Then a resin composite was built up in three layers up to 4 mm and light cured. The specimen were immediately placed in distilled water at 37 degrees. After 24 hours, the bonded specimen was sectioned to obtain rectangular sticks like this. The microtensile bond strength test was conducted with a crosshead speed of 1.0 millimeter per minute, and failure mode was observed with stereoscopic microscope. For two-step self-etch adhesives, the dentin surface was treated with SEB primer after application ACC or CHX, and dried with air blow. Then it was treated with SEB bond, dried with air blow, and light cured. The resin composite was built up in the same way before. Then the specimens were immediately placed in distilled water at 37 degrees. After 24 hours or 1 year, the microtensile bond strength test was conducted. Here shows the result for one-step self-etch adhesives. Application of ACC or CHX demonstrated no adverse influences on bonding ability of adhesives compared with control group. For the failure mode of SEO, adhesive failure were obtained in most of the specimens, and a few specimens demonstrated mixed failure within the dentin when used with ACC. For SBU, adhesive failure was seen in all specimens. And here shows the result for two-step self-etch adhesive. For 24 hours, application of ACC and CHX demonstrated no adverse influence compared to the control group. After aging 1 year, significant reduction of bond strength was found in the control group. In CHX group, the inhibition of reduction in bond strength were found compared to the control group. However, significant reduction in bond strength were found in the 1 year group compared to 24 hours group. On the other hand, no bond strength reductions were found in the ACC group after 1 year. For the failure mode of SAB, adhesive failure was seen in all specimens. Based on the above result, I would like to discuss the following point. It is well known that chlorhexidine improves the bonding durability due to its MMP inhibitory effect, and MDPB is also reported to have MMP inhibitory effect. Moreover, it is reported that MDPB has cathepsin K inhibitory effect. In this study, the increase of bonding durability is shown in CHX group compared to control group. However, significant reduction in bond strength were found in the 1 year group compared to 24 hours group. On the other hand, no bond strength reduction were found in the ACC group after 1 year. So it can be said that ACC is more effective for improving the bonding durability than CHX. Finally, let me explain about the conclusion. Using experimental cavity disinfectant containing MDPB, we found no adverse influences on bonding abilities of self-etch adhesives. Treatment with this could improve the bonding durability of two-step self-etch adhesive systems. That's all for my presentation. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have questions for Dr. Murasi?
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for your presentation. I was wondering, when you talked about the study you published in 2016 in the JDR, sorry. You didn't see any antibacterial activity for chlorhexidine compared to the MDPPB monomer. Could you say something about that? Could you comment about that?
Okay. Thank you for your question. I speculate chlorhexidine is easily adsorbed to dentin surface compared to MDPB. So in my infected dentin model, bacteria is in dentinal tuberous. So MDPB is good to kill in dentin tuberous because chlorhexidine absorbed on the dentin surface, supersurface, not the dentin tuberous. So chlorhexidine couldn't penetrate into dentinal tuberous.
We have some experiments showing the cytotoxicity of chlorhexidine.
Okay.
And in these studies, we've seen that chlorhexidine is able to diffuse through dentin and reach the pulp cells. And depending on the concentration, it can be toxic or not toxic. But we have some evidence that chlorhexidine indeed can diffuse through the dentin tubules. Just to... And in the same study, I'm sorry, I should have read the paper, but in the same study, you did the brow and brain technique, right? To see microorganisms. Using that technique, it's kind of hard to see if the microorganisms are alive or dead.
Yeah, I'll try
Sometimes
now.
the color can help a little bit.
Okay.
But the question would be if you did something else besides the brow and brain, like a culture of the specimens or something like that, to make sure that the microorganisms were really dead.
Okay. I'll try to the experiment. I'm trying now the experiment using confocal laser CRSM with live data staining, but the bacterial number is few to detect live or dead. So I'm trying now in the future work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. So I want to see how what kind of status after the application of the disinfectants. So on the dentin surface, just remaining on the smear layer, or that is also penetrating into the deep structures.
SCC, about SCC.
So how to present this disinfectant after application?
After application,
so the chemical reaction with the smear layer, or the just residual in the smear layer, or the penetration into the deeper.
Okay, and in my previous study, I made another infected dentin model with smear layer, but we can complete killing of bacteria is obtained in the infected dentin model with some layer. So ACC MDPB can be penetrate into dentinal tubules even if the surface covered with smear layer. And after light cured, after application of ACC, and then bonding is applied and light cured. After polymerization, there are MDPB polymerized with resin monomer. So not released, stable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hiroshi. I'm going to ask Dr. Roberto Braga to give you the certificate. Thank you so much for the presentation. People ask me again, so if everybody got the questionnaire from JSPS, if you don't, especially the young researchers, just ask us, and for those that completed, you can give me or any other staff, okay? Or for Rina, I don't remember your last name, I'm sorry. She's waving, she's in the first line. Ask her to wave, please. Oh, it's the one that is sitting in the first line, thank you. Now I'm gonna call Dr. Lourenço de Moraes Rego Roselino, that's going to present characterization of acid conditioners, MMPs, inhibitors in dental tissues. Dr. Lourenço Roselino is a postdoctoral student of the graduate program on operative dentistry from University Dental School at Ribeirão Preto. So, you're already here. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to congratulate the organizers by the initiative of this event and also the sponsors and support. The Congress is excellent. My name is Lourenço de Moraes Rego Roselino. I'm a postdoctor of Ribeirão Preto Dental School, University of São Paulo. My advisor is Professor Dr. Regina Guenca Palmadib. Today, I will present the work entitled Characterization of Acid Conditioner, MMPs Inhibitors in Dental Tissues. This work is the initial results of my research entitled Effect of Dentin Treated with Epigallocatechin 3 Gallate and Quitozan, Physical Chemical Properties. And this, the intention of this research is develop a phosphoric acid contain epigallocatechin 3 gallate and or quitozan for decrease the activation of matrix metalloproteinase and consequently to increase the durability of resident bonded interface and the longevity of composite resin restoration. And who of this research? The literature shows that the reduction of adhesive bond stress occurs by the degradation of the collagen fibrils present in the dentin tissue and consequently in the hybrid layer. This schematic representation of the hybrid layer with adhesive system tags present and collagen fibers
covered by adhesive system. And who degrades collagen fibers? Some proteases enzymes with collagenolipid active present in dentin tissue and matrix metalloproteinases. This is schematic representation of the adhesive interface with adhesive system favoring the activation of enzymes that degrades of the organic portion of the hybrid layer. And then the matrix metalloproteinases are produced by odontoblasts and are responsible for the formation of the dentin organic matrix, and after the mineralization of the dentin remain imprisoned in the calcified matrix in inactive form, not degrading collagen fibers. And how MMPs become active initiating the degradation of the collagen fibers? By the desmineralization of the dentin tissue. This schematic representation of application of acid compounds such as 35% phosphoric acid. This demineralizing dentin leaving the acid environment activating the MMPs. And how to minimize this degradation? Using cross-linkage agents that inhibit the activation of MMPs and reinforcing the integrity of collagen fibers. In this study, where we used as cross-linkage agents the epigallocatechin 3-gallate and chitosan, which are natural agents. Epigallocatechin 3-gallate is a natural polyphenol found in green tea originating from the plant Camellia sinensis. And chitosan is a natural biopolymer derived from chitin found in the exoskeleton of arthropods such as insects, cicadas, and crustaceans, crabs and shrimps. The properties of the epigallocatechin 3-gallate and chitosan are biocompatibility, low toxicity, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, soluble in acid solutions, mineralizers, tissue regeneration, bone resorptions, and inhibitors of MMPs. Then, the aim of this study was to evaluate the effect of experimental phosphoric acids contain matrix metalloproteinases inhibitors in MNL, dentin surface, and adhesive interface by morphological analysis. This research was approved by the Research Ethics Committee of the School of Dentistry, Ribeirão Preto of University of São Paulo, and 9 sound permanent human teeth were obtained from the bank of the teeth of the research institution. The dental crowns were separated of the roots with metallographic 2 millimeters below the cement enamel junction. The teeth were polished using water sandpaper with granulation 18 to 1200 until expose the enamel, superficial dentin, and standard of smear layer. One slice of each tooth was obtained with the following dimensions: 6 mm length, 5 mm width, 1.5 mm thick, and each slice was divided in 6 equal areas. Then, the samples were stored in a container with deionized water at 4 degrees Celsius for a period of 24 hours with the purpose of humidity of the dental substrates. After 24 hours, the treatments with acid conditioners were applied 15 seconds in dent and 30 seconds in enamel according to the groups. Group 1, commercial phosphoric acid, 35% control. Group 2, phosphoric acid, 35% PA, negative control, experimental group. Group 3, the gluconate chloroxidine, incorporated into the PA, experimental group. Group 4, epigalocatequin 3 galate incorporado into the PA experimental group. Group 5, quitozan incorporado into the PA experimental group. And group 5, epigalocatequin 3 galate and quitozan incorporado into the PA experimental group 2. For analysis of surface, samples were dehydrated and prepared for scanning electron microscope N equal 3, and for confocal laser microscope N equal 3, 2. For analysis of adhesive interface, was applied adhesive system at in rinse 3 steps for 15 seconds prime and bond, and photopolymerized for 10 seconds according to the manufacturer's instructions. Subsequently, composite resin was applied with 2 increments of 1.5 millimeters each and photopolymerized for 40 seconds each. After 24 hours, the samples were sectioned and prepared for analysis in scanning electron microscope. For all study groups was observed in surface analysis a similar etching standard for animal substrate with exposure of Emanel prisms with evident demineralization of interprismatic region. The first image show representing group 5 acid with quitozan for confocal laser microscope, and image 2, second image, represent group 5 acid with quitozan for scanning electron microscope. For all study groups was observed in surface analysis a similar etch standard for dentin substrate with complete removal of smear layer with increased opening of tubules. First image represents group 5 with quitozan for confocal laser microscope, and second image represents group 5V2 acid with quitozan for scanning electron microscope. However, in groups containing MMP inhibitors, the collagen was less exposed compared with other groups. The first image represents group 2 with PA, phosphoric acid experimental, and second image represents group 5 with acid with epigalocatequin 3 galate for scanning electron microscope. In adhesive interface was observed dating hybridization in all groups, but the addition of epigalocatequin 3 galate influenced through a lesser techniques of hybrid layer compared with other groups. Image 1 represents group 5 with quitozan, and image 2 represents group 4 with epigalocatequin 3 galate for scanning electron microscope. We conclude that treatment with experimental phosphoric acid shows similar etching for animal dentin substrates evaluated, being more necessary studies for verifying the efficacy of these products as MMPs inhibitors and protection of collagen fibers, proving better adhesion and longevity to composite resin restorations. These are the references. Thank you so much. I'm available for questions.
Anyone with questions for Dr. Lorenzo?
Okay, thank you for your nice presentation and nice research results. But I want to ask about in conclusion, you told us it's good for the longevity of the interface. So did you already check the aging specimen? Because to see the effect of the MMP inhibitor, so we have to check the long after, after making the specimen. So you just show the after 1 day.
This work is the initial results of my research, and with the work we wanted to characterization the acids, the conditioner acids experimental. And in this analysis, we check only 24 hours after the treatments.
So what do you think? What happened 6 months after or 1 year after? What do you think?
After one...
So speculation is okay. So
the expectations of the research is verified the zymography in situ for analysis of inhibition of MMPs with the experimental acids in 24 hours after treatments and 1 year after treatments too. And others studies, microhardeners, microtensile, others spectroscopes and the microscopes.
Okay, so you want to try you want to check the hardness of the interface, and you want to do also morphological tests, and what another things? Now you're doing more study.
Yeah, with the adhesive interface, I verify with the test two adhesive interfaces, which tests that I speak before. But in this work, I verify the morphological analysis of enamel, dentin surface, and the adhesive interface.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Tsukimino to come here to give him the certificate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. We are running a little bit late, but we do have another presentation, so I'm going to ask you for just a little more patience to see Mariko Matsumoto before lunch, because we're going to delay lunch as well. So, no, you can come. You can come. She's going to present the application time effect on dentin bonding with universal adhesives. Dr. Matsumoto is from the Faculty of Dentistry of Hokkaido University. She's assistant professor there. Thank you so much for the presentation, Dr. Matsumoto, and thank you for staying.
Thank you for kind introduction, and I really appreciate for giving me such a great opportunity. I'm Mariko Matsumoto from Hokkaido University, Japan. Today, I would like to talk about the application time effect on dentin bonding with universal adhesives. It doesn't work, sorry. All-in-one self-etching adhesives have become popular in dentistry because of their advantages, such as less technique sensitivity and less time consumption. and universal adhesive are appealing to many clinicians because they are being applied in either self-etch and either etch and rinse or self-etching approach, or they can be used not only for bonding to dentin and enamel, but also as adhesive primers on substrates such as zirconia, composite, metal, and so on. Recently, even one-step self-etching adhesives appear to be not quick enough. Then, new products now claim that high bond strength can be achieved even when applied with reduced application time or gel second. Although shorter application time may be clinically fascinating, the procedure may carry negative consequences to adhesive infiltration and solvent evaporation. In vitro studies, silicon carbide paper and diamond bar are mainly used to prepare dentin surface, and diamond bar is thought more clinically relevant. Previous study reported that a loosely organized smear layer produced by silicon carbide papers was easier for self-etching primer to penetrate when compared to those of diamond bars. In other words, more impact on self-etching adhesive was observed when bonded to bar-cut dentin due to the different characteristic of smear layer. To overcome the infiltration impelling effect of smear layer, prolonged application time has been suggested as an option to increase bond strength. So there is a controversial issue here. Therefore, from our previous study, which tested the immediate effect of smear layer quality and application time with universal adhesive on bond strength, we found that dentin smear layer formed by diamond bar had an undesirable effect on all adhesives, and also application time had an impact on the adhesive performance. Then, as a further study, it is a very concerned topic to obtain the long-term outcome. Therefore, the aim of this study was to evaluate the effects of application time and the long-term storage time on resin dentin bonding of 3 universal adhesives to bar-cut dentin. These are the adhesives we used in this study and showing a composition here. Next, I'm going to explain the procedure of sample preparation. 66 extracted non-callous human third molars were used. The teeth were collected under a protocol reviewed and approved by the University Ethical Committee. 60 teeth were cut to expose a mid-corner dentin, and the surface was prepared with a regular grit diamond bar and a high-speed handpiece with copious word display with 5 light pressure strokes per tooth. Then they were randomly divided into 3 groups according to adhesives used in this study. The teeth assigned for each adhesive were further randomly divided into 2 subgroups according to the adhesive application time. For manufacturer's instruction, bonding was applied with microbrush with agitation for 10 seconds for CU and 20 seconds for SB. For shortened application time, the adhesive was dropped directly from the bottle and dried immediately. For GP, short application time is actually the original manufacturer's instruction. However, we'd like to set it as shortened application time and extend time as manufacturer's instruction in this study. Then, resin composite were built up. After storage of the bonded teeth in water at 37 degrees for 24 hours, each tooth was sectioned into beams. Then 3 beams per tooth were randomly selected, and 15 beams from 5 teeth were tested immediately after sectioning. The remaining beams were kept in distilled water at 37 degrees for 1 year. Then the beams were subjected to tensile force at the crosshead speed of 1 millimeter per minute, and data were analyzed by three-way ANOVA and Duncan test. The fracture specimens were removed from the dig, and fracture mode were determined using SEM. After fracture mode analysis, representative dentin beams from each subgroup having micro-TBS values close to the mean were further prepared for the TEM observation. The specimens were embedded in epoxy resin and then sectioned within 75 to 90 nanometer thickness. The sections were obtained with the TEM. And in order to observe dentin surface characteristics, approximately 2 mm dentin discs of 6 additional teeth were prepared. The surface were prepared by regular diamond burrs as previously described. Each disc was assigned for 6 groups, divided by 3 adhesives and 2 kinds of application time. Immediately after applying with specific adhesive and application time without light curing, the dentin disc was immersed in 100% acetone for 1 minute to remove the applied adhesive. Then all discs were dehydrated and dried with HMDS. The surfaces were examined under SEM to observe the morphological changes. Now I'd like to show the results. There were no pretesting failures in this study. From the result of ANOVA, there were significant effects of adhesive and application time, but there was no significant effect of stretch time. And only interaction between adhesive and application time was significant. In general, higher micro-TBS were observed when all adhesives were applied according to manufacturer's instruction for both testing periods of 24 hours and 1 year. At 24 hours, significantly higher bond strengths were observed for GP when applied with longer application time, and the significance was sustained after 1 year straight. Application time had no significant effect on both CU and SB at 24 hours, but after 1 year straight, significant effects of application time were observed for both GP and CU, but not for SB. GP and SB presented similar bond strengths within each test time and application protocol. The most frequent fracture mode was classified as mixed failure, where the failure was observed within adhesive layer with some part of cohesive failure in dentin. We show the representative SEM images of adhesive layer from fractured surfaces. Various sizes of porosities were detected in all tested groups. They were uniformly distributed on the entire surface of the adhesive layer, except those in SB. Pore-free area was observed when applied SB according to manufacturer instruction. Greater size of porosities was detected in GP. They were predominantly round, having a submicron size in diameter. Only some of those in GP were above 2 micrometers. The porosities were smaller when applied all adhesive with a longer application time. No significant difference was detected between the fractured beams at 24 hours and 1 year straight. This is a TEM result. Hybrid layers ranging from 200 to 1000 nanometer thick were observed for all adhesives. This is for the manufacturer's instructional result, and this is a shortened time result. One interesting finding was a striking difference observed in the adhesive layer when 24 hours is compared to 1 year images for all groups. The dense presence of fillers that can be observed in all images at 24 hours seem to disappear in the specimens after 1 year storage. With exception of GP, the presence of some remaining fillers could be detected after 1 year. Here. But some voids and dropped in adhesive layer were detected in GP. This is the result of surface changes after adhesive application observed by SEM. Remnant of smear layer was observed in all groups regardless of application time. Intact smear layer was observed when applied CU and SB with shortened application time, whereas partial loss of smear layer was detected when GP was used. Conversely, application of the adhesives according to manufacturer's directions clearly resulted in further dissolution of the smear layer and exposure of the underlying dentin, including some collagen fibrils. Now, discussion part. Discussion part will be discussed into 3 topics. First, the difference of material compositions. Second, adhesive smear layer interaction. And third, the effects of long-term stress on resin dentin bond. First, I'd like to discuss about the application time effect. In this study, all adhesive performed higher bond strength when applied with longer time, but a significant effect was observed in some groups. This might be explained by the difference of material composition. The effect of application time was significantly found in GP. This could be the effect of solvent, since GP is acetone-based adhesive. The higher vapor pressure of acetone and the recommended strong air flow of GP could be the reason why significant effect of application time on micro TVS was observed in GP. If I look at the SEM, solvent evaporation was also better in longer time. In case of ethanol water-based adhesive, both water and ethanol can have hydrogen bond to each other and also to monomers. Therefore, it's likely that the shortened application time was insufficient for the solvent to evaporate from ethanol water-based adhesive. Nevertheless, the significant effect of reduced application time on the bond strength was revealed after 1 year in CU. Probably the polymerization was compromised by residual water and solvent, which then could have accelerated the degradation of the resin dentin bond over time. In case of SB, this is surprising since the bond is very stable regardless of any factors. This might be caused by the combined effect of the 10 MDP monomer and vitreous bond copolymer that created the chemical bond to hydroxyl apatite. So far, SB is the only universal adhesive that has been reported the nanorailing formation. So we hypothesized that the chemical bond of this adhesive could contribute to this stable bond strength. For the adhesive smear layer interaction, all adhesives can dissolve smear layer more effectively with a longer application time. If you take a look at pH, GP was classified as intermediately strong self-etching adhesive. So the etching ability was more pronounced even in reduced application time compared to the others, which are classified as mild self-etching adhesives. Previous study also supported this finding. We demonstrated the resin tags penetrating deeper to dentin when these adhesives were applied for the longer period. So with these differences of material compositions and adhesive smear layer interaction, this might be the reason why the bond strengths among the adhesives were different. From TEM observation, we can detect the debonding of silica particles after 1 year. Further debonding appears not to be related to adhesive bond strength, since the bond strengths were stable after a year. However, further study is required to confirm this statement. Since the porosities in the adhesive layer were observed in 24-hour specimens, it was expected that they could promote degradation of the adhesive after long-term stress. For this matter, the higher percentage of mixed failure indicated that the bond to dentin was strong even after 1 year stress. In conclusion, shortened application time caused a significant reduction of bond strength of some adhesives. And the bond strength of all adhesives were not affected by water storage for 1 year. I'm very thanks to Rick Carvalho to give us the great support. Thank you for your kind attention.
Hi, does anyone have questions for her? I do have one question, if you don't mind. It's very fast. It's just about the fracture mode. You told us that you just have mixed and adhesive fractures, no cohesive fractures at all, just mixed and adhesives? Yeah? Okay. Please just. No? Okay. I'm going to ask then Dr. Andrea Hayes to come forward to give her the certificate. And congratulate you once more for the presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
Now everybody can have lunch until 2:15. Okay. Just when we return from lunch, I'm going to ask all the young researchers, coordinators to come forward so we can take a picture, okay? But then I'll let you know. Thank you so much. Have a very nice lunch.